All right, we're good to go, inshallah.
We're good to go?
Yes, sir.
Shall we begin then, inshallah?
Inshallah, go ahead.
Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope everyone is well today. We are in the final stretch of Ramadan, an exciting time. I know a lot of you are probably pretty tired right now, but this is why the reward is so great to continue and push forward. In today's half-hour segment, something that I wanted to kind of talk about, I've been very, historically, I'm very kind of Seerah oriented because that's kind of what I've spent the most time looking at. And I wanted to talk about just a very simple idea. And the idea is this concept of hijrah. Because, for most of you who have been following my series on YouTube, we're still in the Meccan period because the Meccan period is really a 13-year period. We've been doing this for only several weeks right now. So it doesn't make sense to jump into the Medinian period right now. That's at least what I like to tell people. But we do know that the Meccan period, ultimately, it builds up to one singular event. For every Muslim who was there with the Prophet, peace be upon him, in Mecca, it all came down to one important moment for them, right? What is that moment? I'm going to write it out for everybody on paper here. Let me write it out here so you can see it. This was what those 13 years of preparation came down to, is to the hijrah. Okay, the hijrah is the migration from Mecca to Medina, right? The hijrah is when you go from what you know, this place from what you know, to a place that you're unfamiliar with, right? The hijrah is a place where, this is where you were before. You could have been happy, you could have been unhappy or something, but at least it's a known entity and you're being asked to dive into a new world that's unfamiliar to you. This is what hijrah is in many ways. This is what the hijrah signified. If you could, boil it down to its essentials, this is what it was. Is that the Meccans realized, the Muslims who lived in Mecca realized that whatever was happening, going on in Mecca, it was not sustainable. There's just so much persecution, so much attack that they had to get out. The Prophet, peace be upon him, himself, realized he had to escape because their lives were at stake. And so they have to make this hijrah, to go from one place to another place. Now, it's not easy. And so easy for us when we read the Seerah to just be like, oh yeah, of course, everyone went, and Sayyidina Umar went, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, and everyone was like, yeah, if I was there, I would have done it too. And it's so easy for us to look back on the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and say like, oh, if I was there, I would have fought at Badr. If I was there, I would have done this. And we all just think we would be these amazing companions. And, I'd like to think we would be. But you have to realize that to make a hijrah means like just dropping everything and just going with your bare essentials from the place that you know to a place of unknown, okay? Now, what I wanted to do today is I wanted to bring this up because, hijrah isn't, in my mind's eye, hijrah isn't just leaving, one city and going to another city. It doesn't mean you leave Los Angeles to go to San Francisco. It doesn't mean that you leave, Houston to come to Phoenix or Phoenix to go to Minneapolis. It's not just about this physical travel. It's about developing a mindset before you travel. What do I mean by that? Imagine you were with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in Mecca through the difficult times, years, the Quran years, as I like to call them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9, the ban years. You were there with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. You're struggling all this time. And now you're getting to years 10 and 11, and now the hijrah is now coming up. We got to get out of here, guys. This is not sustainable. Abu Talib has died. The Prophet's protection has died. Sayyidina Khadija has died. We're losing a lot of protection and support. This is not sustainable. We need to find a place to go. And then the Prophet, peace upon him, secures the settlement of Yathrib as the place where he can take his people to. Okay, well, you're one of those people. What do you take on this journey with you? Can you go on this journey? First of all, are you willing to say goodbye to your friends and your family? Are you that committed that you're actually going to leave your family behind who doesn't agree with you in your vision? Are you that committed that you're going to drop everything? You might not be able to sell your assets because you can't, because if you do, then people are going to know you're leaving. You need to get out of there without people knowing it. Are you willing to take a loss on all the stuff that you've accumulated your whole life? And are you able to just kind of just let it go? Just wipe your hands clean of everything that you've worked so hard for to go with the Prophet to a place that's unknown and uncertain? Are you willing to take yourself to this new place? And that is just simply not easy. And that's why the Muhajirin had such a high maqam, had such a high standing in the eyes of the Prophet Muhammad and in the eyes of Allah, is that to drop everything that meant something to you for the sake of Allah takes a certain level of commitment that simply, it's easy to say that we have, but unless we have done what those Meccan Sahaba did, I don't know that we would necessarily be up to that challenge, right? It's a very daunting task. And so what I want to do today is I wanted to pose this question to all of you, as I'm asking myself also, is, do I have that yaqeen, that certainty? Do I have that confidence? And do I have that tawakkul, that reliance on Allah, that I would be able to drop like all of my stuff right now, like my house? We've all paid a lot for our houses, our cars, our wealth, our clothing, our hobbies, all the things that we enjoy to do in our pastimes, video games and sports, whatever it is that we like to do. Would we honestly be willing to drop all of that and just travel with whatever we can carry on our backs to start a new life, right? Because in many ways, as a companion, you can imagine, Mecca was comfortable for them. They had a lot of what they need. They had water, they had facilities, they had resources, and so forth. And now they're going to Yathrib. It's an agricultural town. As a Meccan, you're not a farmer. You don't know how to farm. You don't know how to cultivate crops. So you don't know any of this stuff. So what kind of living are you going to get going to Yathrib? Completely unknown, right? But what the companions had, which they felt confident with, is that they had the Prophet Muhammad. So they gave up everything else, but they traded it in for the companionship of the Prophet Muhammad. And for many of them, for all of them, that was enough. They're like, I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know how I'm going to get income. I don't know how I'm going to get any of this stuff. But so long as I am with the Prophet Islam, and so I am close to Allah, that's all I need. That's what the mindset of a muhajir is. So then the question is, are we there yet? Do we have that mindset or not? And like I said, it's very easy to romanticize that, oh yeah, definitely. If the Prophet Islam is there, I would do it. But when we look at our own actions today, there are things that the Prophet Islam maybe is asking us to do right now that we're not doing. So why do we think all of a sudden that we can step it up to a much higher notch than just the basic things that he's asking us to do already? And so this idea of hijrah, in order to figure out, are you ready to make a hijrah, right? And what do I mean by that in the context of today, right? This is the end of Ramadan. Well, it could be in the context of, are you ready to leave what you know behind? However life is right now and the comforts of life and so forth, whatever you've created for yourselves and your family and so forth, are you able to leave parts of that behind? I don't mean you're actually leaving your family behind, right? I mean psychologically and in terms of your mission statement in life. Are you willing to leave behind certain things that just aren't necessarily bringing you that much benefit? They're more like pastimes, entertainment, hobbies, stuff like that. Are you willing to leave that behind for some higher calling, right? And this is really important because some of us might say, well, I have no reason to leave. Like, why do I need to leave my hobbies, and why do I need to do this and that? And I'm not telling people to like drop everything. Certainly, like, we're supposed to live a beautiful and balanced and healthy life. We're supposed to have fun with our families and our friends and so forth. So I'm not saying that we're trying to be severe about this, but the question is about taking kind of like personal stock of ourselves and asking ourselves the questions: am I living for my highest potential? Like, is this, because this is it then? If we're not willing to change, then if you're not willing to grow, right, if we're looking at this, then you will always remain here. You will always remain where you are comfortable. But the hijrah means about leaving, in many ways, what is comfortable to go on a journey for something even better, right? If you told the companions in Mecca, or if you asked them, they probably maybe not have been able to realize how amazing Medina was going to become, right? Medina is the place. I mean, when people go back to the Haramain, right? When people go for Umrah and so forth, Medina is where it's at. Medina is where the Prophet, peace upon him, is buried, because he wanted to be there in Medina. As much as he loved Mecca, what he created with the companions is really, that's in many ways, like the heart of Islam, right? Of course, we have the Kaaba in Mecca, and that's our Qibla. But in Medina, that's where the beauty is at. What was created by the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. But in order to do that, he and the companions had to leave what was comfortable and known and convenient and go on this journey of growth into the unknown. And in order to do that, you have to be willing to take stock of, like, what do I need on this journey? What is important to me? And what am I willing to let go of for the possibility of something even better, right? And so that question of what am I willing to let go of for the possibility of something even better, that is a very, very difficult question. You have to do this inventory of your life. You have to do kind of like this spring cleaning or Ramadan cleaning of your life and say, what am I willing to drop? What dead weight? What have I been carrying this whole year or these last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, however old you are? What have I been carrying all this time? It could have been cultural baggage. It could have been responsibilities that aren't necessarily important to you. It could have been goals your whole life that you always want to achieve, but then you're realizing are just not that important. What are these things, right? And an easy one for me to kind of talk about, because it might relate to people, is, for example, careers, right? We had this idea of, it's very easy in our careers, for example, to get wrapped up in this whole notion of how important we are and how important our job is and how important our career path is. Right? I mean, for those of us who are in management, for example, it's like, oh, well, I want to become senior management. And then once I become senior management, I want to become a vice president or an executive vice president, and then hopefully a regional manager and then a president, or however that corporate hierarchy is. As a physician, it could be, I want to, be a resident, then I want to be an attending physician, then I want to open up my own practice, then I want to be the head of a chairman of the entire group, then I want to be the head of the hospital. There's always a ladder that we want to climb. And along that journey, we start telling ourselves how important we are, because now I am the regional director. And then as soon as you become the vice president or whatever's above that, you're like, well, now I'm the vice president, and you no longer care about regional directorship. We tell ourselves these stories about how important our positions are in our careers, in many ways to justify the amount of effort and time that we put into our careers. And the reason why this is important is, yes, it's important that we are ambitious, that we have ambition and so forth, and that we work hard and so forth. But to what end? Is it because we've created a level of importance for our careers? Or is it these careers are actually meaningful in our journey to Allah? Because what happens for a lot of people is that we get caught up in our careers, and it comes at the expense of our children, our spouses, the time, ourselves, and investing in ourselves spiritually and so forth. And we forget the whole reason why we got caught up in that. And so in many ways, what I see when I look at Ramadan is, especially these last 10 days, this period of, reflection often, people say that, oh, this is a time for increased ibadah. This is a time for increased prayer. And this is why I'm kind of bringing up this whole concept of hijrah right now in these last few days, is that when we say this is a time for increased prayer, immediately what comes to mind, what has come to mind to me for most of my life, is that now I just need to crank out more rakats. Now I have to crank up my dua and crank up my Quran. My output has to become greater, right? And certainly that's the case. Your output wants to get bigger. You want to start staying up later if you can, and really call upon Allah and really ask Him for what you are looking for. But part and parcel with that, it's not just cranking out, verbally more volume. It's not turning up the volume or turning up the production line. It's about turning up the internal dialogue, about turning up the level of reflection and introspection. And that's what something like, for example, i'tikaf, or just really closing yourself off, walling yourself off does, right? Why do you need to seclude yourself in Ramadan? Why can't you just pray a lot with other people around you? There's something about that seclusion that allows you the quietness and the freedom to start looking within yourself for self-introspection, right? When there's no one else calling on you, you don't have other responsibilities maybe for that evening or whatever, then you can start going deep into yourself and peeling back the layers of who am I? And what am I attached to? What are my attachments? Because remember, at the end, this deen is about attachment. It's about attachment to Allah. Well, we all are human beings, and we have attachments to a lot of things. Hopefully, Allah is the thing that we are most attached to, but we are certainly attached to our children and our spouses, our families, right? That's why it's a test. It wouldn't be a test for us if we weren't attached to that. We're attached to our wealth. We're attached to our reputations. We're attached to the image that we portray to the world. We're attached to so many things. Whether we like to say that we are or not, most of us are attached to these things. And these last 10 days gives us an opportunity, especially, in the late hours of the night into the early morning, that last third of the night, when the world is quiet and the world is still. You can't hear anything. The animals are sleeping now. There's all kind of, like you would say poetically, the veils are lifted, right? There's just, everything is quiet. There's no distraction. There's nothing going on in the world. And when you get up at that time and turn to Allah, you also are able to, I hope, turn your eyes onto yourself. And not just say, you're not just saying, oh, Allah, look at me. I'm praying and look how good I am. And I'm praying and this and that. No, you're saying, let me think about myself. What am I doing in the middle of the night? Where am I at? What's preventing me from connecting with Allah completely? And do I truly need these things, right? That's kind of the internal reflection. Do I really need these things that I have had my whole life? It's time to reevaluate. What was I doing last year? How can I leave Ramadan a different person than when I walked into it? And that's not all just, some miraculous blessing. Allah is going to just, snap His fingers and you're different. No, that requires like a struggle on our part to be like, you know what? I am going to leave behind, and I'm just making this up, whatever it is for you guys. Let's just say I'm going to leave behind that hour of entertainment TV I watch every day when I get home. Okay, that's your thing. Okay, that's what you've decided. I had this, you can tell yourself, I just have this knack for, I love to watch TV to unwind when I get home. I don't want to be with my family. I need 1 hour to unwind before I be with my family. Well, is that really necessary? 1 hour of TV, think about that. That's over 360 hours of time just watching some random stuff that probably doesn't benefit you at all, is not benefiting your family. And imagine what you could do with 360 hours of your day next year. So now it's time to make that decision. Is this what I want to do? Or is this something that I want to shed? This is dead weight, and I want to shed this. Or maybe it's social media. Social media just makes me anxious and upset and jealous, and it's just not, there's no benefit in that. So I just want to shed it and be more present with my family. Whatever these things are, this baggage, we need to start shedding it, because you're not going to be able to make the journey from here to here carrying everything, right? There's only so much your camel can carry. There's only so much that you can walk with to go to the new promised land that you want to be at. And in doing so, you have to shed some of this dead weight, some of this heaviness, these habits and hobbies that we have. We have to shed that so that we can make a quick journey and escape to this new garden, this new riyadh, right? This new garden with the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him. And so, that's the big ticket item that I wanted to just emphasize today, is this concept of letting go, of taking stock of yourself, figuring out who do I want to be, what is in between me right here, A, and B, the destination. And what do I have to let go of or hold on to even stronger to get to here? Because it's through these steps of moving from A to B and then from B to C and then C to D. That's our journey as Muslims, right? It's these little hijras of letting go of things and moving on to a new station in life, moving on to a new identity for who we are and how we want to self-identify ourselves and how we want to identify ourselves with Allah, right? And every time you let go of an old persona, it's like a skin. You just shed that skin and you become a newer, better version of yourself. And as there's one saying that I really like a lot, they say that, getting older is, and I don't remember it exactly, but it's something to the extent of, the act of getting older is a process of becoming who you always were. So all this other stuff, we're just like shedding the dead weight. And you'll see as you talk to someone who has been on that journey, who you really admire, if you look at someone who truly is treading that path, that spiritual journey back to Allah, you'll start seeing that they have less and less possessions. Because where they're going, the higher up they go up the mountain, the harder it is to carry stuff, and the less they want to actually carry any of that stuff. They just want to get to the top. And so if we are also climbing that mountain, we'd like to climb that mountain, those little hijras year after year after year, Ramadan to Ramadan to Ramadan, every Ramadan, we should be walking out a little bit lighter than we were walking into Ramadan. If we are doing that, we can hope that by the time we get closer to our death, wherever that may be, it could be this year, it could be next year, wherever that comes, we were lighter and better prepared to meet our Lord. And so those are just some basic topics I want to talk about with the hijrah and just introduce this idea of that. It's like getting close to the end of the half hour. So I'll wrap this up here in case there are any questions or anything like that. But really just kind of hone in on this idea of hijrah, hone in this idea of wanting of breaking your life up into segments, and you're constantly trying to reach this next segment. And in order to do so, you have to constantly be asking yourself, was this equipment that I used climbing up the mountain so far? Have I used any of this stuff really? Like I've been carrying this TV up the mountain, but did I have time to really watch TV? Is it benefiting me to watch TV climbing this mountain? And then really reflect on that. And then look at the cost of having to carry this heavy baggage. It could be TV, it could be, this heavy makeup kit, or it could be, all these unnecessary, goodies, food that I'm not eating or it's unhealthy for me. Whatever it is, take inventory of that now in these last 10 days, and then be like, you know what, at least shed one of those things. And be like, I don't need this, because where I'm going, the air is going to get thinner, it's going to get higher up there, and I only need my essentials to get there. So I'm going to start shedding all of the unnecessary stuff that is really in the end has been weighing me down. So I hope, some of this may be beneficial for some of you listening right now. Maybe some of you are going through this process of introspection right now. This is really important. This idea of house spring cleaning and lightening your load. This is something that's been popular, in the last year or two. There's that show, I think, Marie Kondo or something like that, where a lady helps people thin out their bedrooms, their closets, and so forth. In the same way, we kind of have to do that for ourselves. It's kind of just thin out and clear out all the stuff we've collected over the past year or over our lifetime, and start, getting ready to move to higher heights, which means we don't have to carry as much as we need to, but we also get to go to places that other people aren't necessarily equipped or willing to go. And for us, that place ultimately is back to our Creator. So I'll end with that. Ahmed, do we have any questions or anything like that we need to get to?
Unfortunately, today we don't have any questions.
Okay, no problem.
Jazakallah khair for this journey, for this reminder to take it back and take a self-reflection. Again, the output of Ramadan and Siyam is لعلهم taqwa, to achieve taqwa. And
Yep.
without
Mhm.
introspection and reflection, it's going to be very hard. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ahmed. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you everyone, and I'm guessing this is the last episode, right? Next week is going to be
I believe
Eid.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, doctor, and
Okay.
I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows you to reach Laylatul Qadr and to attain its reward, as well as all of our viewers and listeners, and Eid Mubarak, inshallah. We'll see you soon.
Ameen.